security programs, and the young lady down there told me, she goes, well, I'm glad you saw this because I knew something wasn't right. And I told her, well, have the counterterrorism people look at it too, just to make sure that, have them put their 2 cents into this too. A week later, I got a phone call from the security specialist, and she said, Mr. Cole, she goes, can you tell me who I need to send this package up to in counterterrorism? So I gave her the guy's name, and she goes, not that it matters. I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, the FBI hired her, and they gave her a top-secret SCI clearance, and she's working at Washington field office. I just couldn't believe it. So I wrote another letter to the Senate.
Before you go any further, first, her name became public because, as you know, Paul Sperry wrote this book called Infiltration, and her name is Hadiah Roberts. Mm-hmm. And Hadiah Roberts actually worked in this translation station that was only 2 desks to my right while I was working for the FBI's Washington field office. There's another interesting angle with this Hadiah story before we move to the Senate's response, or actually their lack of response to this very, very major issue, major case. As you said, John, her father worked for the ISI, the military attaché in Washington, D.C.
Right.
Who he worked under was very interesting, too. He worked, Hadiah Roberts, the FBI language specialist at TSC. Her father's boss was General Mahmoud. You're familiar, of course, with General Mahmoud, right?
Yes.
Of ISI. And General Mahmoud happens to be the man who wired $100,000 to Mohammed Atta before 9/11. And he was meeting with Mark Grossman either the day before 9/11 or on the day of that it happened, September 11th terrorist attack. Now, her father worked for General Mahmoud. And if you, this is for our listeners, check General Mahmoud's name and search it, you will get a lot of info on his connection to 9/11. And she didn't even hide this fact. And here she was actually listening to Pakistani military attaché in D.C. And these are her father's friends and her father's boss, And how did this happen? I mean, how could they? I mean, can just incompetence explain this, John?
I can't figure this out. To this day, I still can't figure it out, why they hired her. But I understand that they also hired her son, and he works there as a contractor.
Absolutely. I was there when they hired her son. And do you know where she's working right now?
No, I have
She
no idea.
was promoted. She is in the FBI's headquarters in charge of the entire Pakistani translation division. She is in the supervisory position.
That's just amazing.
That's right.
That's just amazing. See, what was interesting about after she was hired, about 2 months after that, we had I received a communication from Washington field office, and if they don't know the name of the person, they, how that works with Sybel, they put it as an unknown subject
Correct.
case. Mm-hmm. And there was an unknown subject case they opened up because somebody had supplied the Pakistani government with some information. I won't go into the details of the information, but when I started looking into that communication that came to headquarters, since I ran the Pakistani program, the counterintelligence program, there's only a handful of people that would have had access to that information, her being one of them.
Right.
But that case was opened up just for a very short period of time, and then it was closed. Somebody closed the case. It was the same with after I started making all these inquiries into, what the hell's going on type thing, and something that needs to be changed, and then I started writing letters to Director Mueller again. Of course, the FBI management came after me and said that they have a problem with my security clearance. And I asked them, I said, what's the problem? I said, I just got, 6 months prior, I just got a communication from security program saying my 5-year reinvestigation had been completed, and I'm good for another 5 years. So what could have possibly come up in that period of time? And they wouldn't tell me. They just said, we're looking at you because we have a problem with your security background.
Right.
Now, at some point, John, were you tempted to go to Radio Shack and buy a Geiger counter to see if you actually were radioactive?
I probably should have done that.
But more seriously, what this suggests is deep infiltration and penetration of foreign interests into high levels of our security management, including where you worked at the FBI. And this is deeply troubling. This goes beyond embarrassments or things that are inconvenient, because if we follow that money that General Mahmoud wired through Dubai to Muhammad Atta, it was roughly a week before 9/11. That is a thread that, to my knowledge, was never followed up on by the 9/11 Commission.
Never.
Nor has it been followed up on by the American media.
Well, don't get me started with the 9/11 Commission, because I don't have much faith in the 9/11 Commission.
Oh, please, John, let's talk about it, because this is a good point to talk about that, because it's very relevant. And please go ahead.
Well, the thing with the 9/11 Commission, everybody, there's a lot of people that I know, including myself, that put our 2 cents into what we felt was wrong and what needed to be changed, and some of the issues that we saw. And not one of those issues was placed into the 9/11 Commission report. It was almost as if they ignored everything that most of us, if not all of us, told them.
9/11 omission report.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the thing is that there's a lot of information that's out there that prior to 9/11, there was agents that could have prevented 9/11 if they were allowed to go ahead with some of the operations that they were working. But they were getting held back by FBI headquarters.
Now, are you speaking of Colleen Rowley or others?
I'm talking of others.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Phoenix memo. There's Colleen Rowley.
Right.
There's Wright in Chicago. There's a number of them. Also, the FBI had a paid informant that lived with one of the hijackers in California.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes on and on and on. There's so much out there that there's no reason why that 9/11 could not have been prevented. If they would have been doing what they were supposed to be doing, if people at headquarters, FBI management at headquarters, looked at what they were supposed to be looking at and did what they were supposed to be, what they should have been doing, we would not have had 9/11 occur. I truly feel that in my heart, that should never have occurred, and we should have been able to prevent that.
John, I share your criticism of the 9/11 Commission, and I went to Washington, spent quite some time there personally watching the undertakings, and I came away with no confidence. Now, you were assigned to the team that investigated the Pentagon attack, and I'd just like to ask you, because I'm one of these 9/11 truthers. Now, I do not argue that it was an inside job. I don't have any information to sustain that. But I don't believe the official story, and I don't have confidence in the work of the Kane Hamilton Zelikow Commission. But tell me, do you have any misgivings about what has been reported that occurred at the Pentagon, and in particular, was the hole in the side of the building big enough to swallow up an airliner, and did that airliner simply disintegrate inside the building, leaving nary a trace of physical evidence?
Well, to be honest with you, when I talk about the Pent Bomb investigation, that's the investigation the Bureau named for the entire attacks of 9/11.
Okay.
So as far as simply the investigation on the Pentagon,
mm-hmm.
I have no idea. I mean, what I was doing on the Pent Bomb investigation is right after 9/11. I mean, the day after, I was up in the command center, they call it the SIOG in the FBI, and I was taking in phone calls, trying to find any leads that were coming out, and we were also trying to make sure that there was no other attacks that were going to occur.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to make sure that we could prevent something else that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as the actual investigating the attacks on the Pentagon, I really don't know.
Okay.
To be honest.
Well, then let me ask a broader question, because here you're a man who took seriously the commitments that you had made to report wrongdoing. You did so, and you were retaliated against.